How you doing, everybody, and welcome back to the NFL Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium. We've brought you just me looking haggard at the first video. We brought you Mike McCarthy, Ted Thompson, and J.J. Watt videos of them speaking to the media. We've brought you Aaron Nagler of Cheesehead TV raising the level of our videos. So to close out here on the final day of the Scouting Combine, at least in terms of media availability, we bring back Wilde's Mailbox, taking your questions via email, via Twitter, and we've got a bunch of them that are lined up. We'll try and get to a few of them here. The first one comes from Sean, and Sean wants to know, with the depth the Packers have, does that make them more willing to trade picks to move up in the first round? That's a popular theory that a lot of people have as the Packers prepare for the draft, which begins on April 28th. They have certainly cultivated a lot of depth. They have an opportunity with the number of guys that are coming back from injured reserve to have almost a second draft class joining them. You know, guys like Mike Neal, who suffered a serious injury that ended his season, Morgan Burnett, whose season ended with a torn ACL. Guys like that who can really help this team. I'm still not convinced that Ted Thompson is going to break character and use draft picks to package and trade up to get specific players. He just doesn't believe in that. Now, we've seen him do it twice in his time in Green Bay. The obvious one and the biggest one being to get Clay Matthews in the first round in 2009. But I'm not convinced just because their depth is good that they're going to go that direction in the draft. But it is a possibility. That leads to another question we got, wondering, what about Gabe Carimi? You know, a lot of Badgers fans are also Packers fans and vice versa. Gabe Carimi is viewed as a first-round draft pick. Mike Mayock from the NFL Network was up at the podium just a while ago saying that he's the kind of guy in Carimi that you plug in at right tackle for the next 10 years and you're set at that position. Now, that's not the same as Gabe Carimi's predecessor at left tackle at Wisconsin, Joe Thomas, who you plug in at left tackle. He goes to Pro Bowl after Pro Bowl, and he's your guy at that position. I don't know enough yet about Gabe Carimi. I know he came in here and talked about how he thinks he's the best tackle in the draft. I think we'll see what happens at his pro day in Madison if things change for him. I just don't think that he's going to be still on the clock or on the board when the Packers pick at 32. Would the Packers trade up to go get him, and then they would have Brian Bulaga at left tackle and Gabe Carimi at right tackle for the foreseeable future, even though Chad Clifton will be back in 2011? They could. Again, I struggle to see that happening, though, given Ted Thompson's track record. But I'll tell you this, as a viewer and as a storyteller, I love the idea of the sequel to Mark Tauscher and Chad Clifton being Brian Bulaga and Gabe Carimi. Let's take another question here. This one is from John, and John wants to know, what about the future of Mark Tauscher? And as you look at how Mark Tauscher's season ended, as we scroll down for a few more questions, I just don't see him coming back at his age. Yet another injury, the shoulder injury ends his season. I think that the days for Mark Tauscher with the Packers are over. Now, there's a lot of uncertainty because of the collective bargaining agreement. We don't know how the offseason is going to play out. We don't know how free agency is going to play out. But, you know, Homer talks about it all the time. There's one type of player more than any other that Ted Thompson doesn't particularly want on his roster, and that's a guy who's old and injured. And Mark Tauscher fits both those bills. So I would love to see him back. It was sad to see him not be able to play when the Packers win the Super Bowl, but they've got a pretty good replacement in the short term. I get all choked up talking about Tausch. In the short term, in Brian Bulaga. If Brian Bulaga's long-term future is at left tackle, they will need someone, whether it's T.J. Lang, Marshall Newhouse, whomever it might be at right tackle. But I think the book is closed on Mark Tauscher's great career with the Packers, and I will miss him if that turns out to be the case. One more for Wilde's Mailbox, and this one is, what position do you see as the Packers' biggest need entering the draft? That one comes from Mike. He says he thinks it's offensive line. I'm not quite sure that would be at the top of the priority list. I personally think that it's outside linebacker. Now, I say that I like Frank Zombo, I like Eric Wilde, and I like what they did. And you've heard me say this before. This is a position where we have seen undrafted players become say, great players. When you look at a guy like Harrison in Pittsburgh, James Harrison was undrafted. He was cut a couple of times by the Steelers and by the Ravens, and then he became an NFL Defensive Player of the Year. He's obviously one of the stars in this league. He certainly has had his problems with illegal hits and the commissioner, but he's a great player. But what the Packers need to make that 3-4 even better than it's been the last 2 years is bookend great outside linebacker play. They have Clay Matthews on one side, assuming he stays healthy. He's going to be a great player for a decade. On the other side, though, is Frank Zombo ready to be that guy? Is Eric Walden, who had a great game against the Bears late in the regular season, ready to be that guy? If there's an opportunity to go out and get another impact outside linebacker, I think that would be the ideal situation for the Packers. The other two positions that I think some people think they're stocked at, and I don't think they're as stocked as some may believe, one would be corner. They've obviously got Charles Woodson, who's getting up there but is still playing well. They've got Sam Shields, who came out of nowhere as an undrafted free agent. And they have Tramon Williams, who is a star in the making, having earned his first Pro Bowl berth, even though he didn't get to participate after being an alternate. But I think they need to cultivate some depth there. I haven't been impressed with Brandon Underwood. I'm not sure what Pat Lee did in the Super Bowl is enough to make you feel like he's got a long-term future with this team. So to me, that's another position that they have to figure out. And I do think they need to cultivate depth on the offensive line. Darren College is a free agent. They're going to have to figure out if he departs, who's going to be their left guard. I know they like Nick McDonald. They like TJ Lang. But again, we've got an off-season of uncertainty with the CBA, so we're going to see how that plays out. But those would be the three positions I would highlight, probably more than any other. And I know there are other spots. They'd love to get a kick returner, those kinds of things. But I think those are the three that I would pick off the top of my head. I think that'll do it for the Combine here and our Wilde's Mailbox return. We will do that through the off-season. It got replaced by 5 questions with intern Jackie, but we will bring it back. So get your questions in. I need material for these videos. I'm sure Maddie will appear in a few, and maybe her little sister when she gets here. Bear with me on that. You know how I am. You can send those questions via email, jwilde@espnwisconsin.com. Put Wilde's Mailbox in the subject line, or you can send them via Twitter. Let's try a little hashtag action. Wilde's Mailbox has the hashtag as well, but you can direct them to me at Jason J. Wilde. Thanks for tuning in all week long at the Scouting Combine, and we'll see you next time.